what's fascinating is, as a dietitian and as a gastroenterologist, and as my expertise is in the small bowel because of my love
Mm-hmm.
of the gut and nutrition from my dietetic training. So I specialize in those diseases. I'm well aware of the relationship between the brain and the gut interactions when it comes to gastrointestinal diseases,
Ah, yes.
not of the relationship that you awakened me to about how that same interaction affects the brain in terms of ADHD and the frontal lobe and the executive dysfunction. And it all made so much sense to me because I was already dealing with it.
Welcome to the Soaring Child podcast, where parents of children with ADHD learn tips and tricks to help their child soar at home, at school, and in life. We feature interviews with experts, medical professionals, and parents just like you who are learning how to reduce ADHD symptoms using food and other natural strategies. Because children with ADHD deserve to soar just like every other child. I'm Donna Kay, your host. Hello, parents. This is Donna Kay here with another edition of the Soaring Child podcast. Now, firstly, and I say this quite often, but it is my passion to support families of children with ADHD. But I know that I can't reach everyone on my own. And so that's why I'm asking for a little bit of your help before we dive into today's episode. Will you follow this podcast? Will you share it with your friends and family? Maybe leave us a review, because when you do those things, it helps us reach more and more people and offer more and more hope to families of children with ADHD. I think today's episode is going to be one that you want to share. This is going to give hope to so many families out there. And I can't tell you how excited I am to be interviewing today a person that I feel that has become a friend in a way, a professional, but also a mum. This episode is going to be a not to miss episode, and I know that I probably say that quite often, but I am so excited. Now, my guest today, Donna Cipolla, she is a medical doctor. She's also a registered dietitian, but she is a well-respected gastroenterologist with a career full of achievements. She's also a mum who is deeply invested in her child's well-being, in her professional life, and, from her early days, really dove deep into intense study to reach the top of her field. But it's her journey as a parent, especially her journey, that adds this unique layer to her story. Donna has a child with ADHD, and she went down the journey of trying to help her son naturally many, many years after her son was diagnosed with ADHD. And I think the mix of having that medical doctor and that registered dietitian, but also a mum of a child with ADHD, really, really provides this unique perspective, which is why I'm so extremely excited today to welcome Donna to the Soaring Child podcast. Hi, Donna. How are you?
Good, Donna. How are you? It's so happy to be here. I'm honored that you asked me to be here. I'm just hoping that I can help other people with my story in terms of my journey.
Well, Donna, I'm honored that you're here, that you're going to share your story with others. And I love that. I was just saying to you before we got started that I love that you're both a medical doctor and a registered dietitian, because, obviously food comes first when it comes to ADHD. So I think this unique combination is great. Now, why don't you share with listeners just a little bit about your journey with your child who has ADHD? What does your journey prior to coming to work with the ADHD Thrive Institute? What did your journey look like? What challenges were you facing with your family? Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, my child is 25 years old, and he was diagnosed at the age of 6 with ADHD. At that point in time, we did try psychotherapy. We did try some behavioral modification at his schools, as was suggested by the place where he was evaluated with that made this diagnosis. However, it was very apparent after about 6 or 9 months of this that the school felt that based on his behavioral issues that he needed to go on medication. I did not want to put him on medication, being a physician and being aware of the side effects. But I really, really had no options at that point. So he did go on medication, and he proceeded to be on medication for about 19 years with psychiatrists and therapy, weekly to every other week for all those years. And he had a long journey with 3 to 4 medications was his norm. And he had a rocky road with not a lot of successes, not doing well in school, still having issues with behavior and lack of friends and frustrations and temper tantrums and meltdowns, despite being on medication. And the response would be just up the medication, just add another med. And we kind of just putted along until he got to college.
Yeah, wow, it sounds so familiar to so many journeys that I've heard about. I You were telling me this story that when you first came to work to try and work with the ADHD Thrive Institute to help your son, that when you spoke to someone on my team, they said, "Oh, look, we don't help adults," and you were sort of like, "No, you need to help me. You need to help me." So I love that. We're talking about a 25-year-old today. We're talking about your child, but who is already an adult. I think that generally we're talking a lot about children, but talk to me a little bit about his challenges that he was facing at school. So even though you were on 3 strong medications or even 4 at one time, what were his issues? What was he struggling with?
He was struggling with doing poorly academically.
Mm-hmm.
He personally was very socially isolated, had no friends. He would get in trouble at class and have anger outbursts. I remember one time the teacher told him to do something he didn't. He got up and he walked out of the class and slammed the door and broke the door handle, and we had a handle. But he had a lot of anger outbursts, temper tantrums, just poor academic performance, and would just seem to be very, very sad, depressed, and angry. And there was, I tried everything that I knew as a physician. I had the top psychiatrist, the top neurologist, the top therapist, and I would tell them the issues, and they would say, "Well, try this or try this or try this," but no one ever suggested any kind of dietary intervention. Now, being a dietitian, which my son will tell you was not fun growing up with a dietitian, we ate organic. We always ate organic. We didn't have sweets in the house. We didn't have processed foods in the house. So we didn't drink soda. So he had a big diet, but still that wasn't all there was. So I thought I was doing good, giving him a good, healthy diet, but little did I know until I got into your program that there was so much more to dietary intervention than just the simple things that I knew as a dietitian to do.
Yeah, definitely. And so, look, as a gastroenterologist and a dietitian, a registered dietitian, you have a really deep understanding of the human body and the medical science side of things. So, what led you to actually explore natural strategies for your son's ADHD management, especially at the age of probably when you started 24?
Well, what led me to actually start to do that was a catastrophe in our life, which was my son flunking out of college in his senior year. He hadn't admitted to me because, you don't have access to their grades when they're in college. Yeah, how they're doing. And he came home at the end of his fall semester and was just about to start a spring semester a year ago. And he got a letter saying that he was dismissed. And at that point, he admitted that he had had multiple warnings through the 3.5 years. He had been on probation. He had been suspended. And ultimately, he was dismissed for academic reasons of having a GPA of about 1.7, which I was flabbergasted. I was just, you're joking. And he was in tears. He was just emotionally a wreck. And it's like, okay, he's hit rock bottom. We got to pick up the pieces. How do we do that? Where do we turn? You're talking about a guy who's now was on 4 medications.
Yeah.
He was already talking to a psychiatrist at college once a week. Where else do we go? It wasn't years later, and now he's a college dropout. Where do we go with his life? And that's what made me try to seek out any and every other possible alternative of something else to do that maybe I wasn't aware of, that I had missed along the line. And
Yeah.
that's why I turned to your program when I became aware of your program.
Wow. Yeah, look, it's sort of like that's all you know. You know medication, you're told medication, that's the only way to treat it. And you're
Correct.
not told anything else. And that's where most people go. Now, from your professional standpoint, I mean, you're a gastroenterologist, a very, very well accredited gastroenterologist. How do you see the connection between gut health and ADHD symptoms?
Well, what's fascinating is, as a dietitian and as a gastroenterologist, and as my expertise is in the small bowel because of my love
Mm-hmm.
of the gut and nutrition from my dietetic training. So I specialize in those diseases. I'm well aware of the relationship between the brain and the gut interactions when it comes to gastrointestinal diseases.
Ah, yes.
Not of the relationship that you awakened me to about how that same interaction affects the brain in terms of ADHD and the frontal lobe and the executive dysfunction. And it all made so much sense to me because I was already dealing with it with my GI diseases, with my IBS,
Mm-hmm.
in my Crohn's disease patients and my small bowel bacterial overgrowth patients. I had no
Mm.
same concept. So it was like a light bulb went off, like, oh, wow, this is unbelievable that this is the same mechanism of action. And that I was totally, as a medical profession, totally unaware of this.
Yeah.
So,
And that's not to anyone's fault other than this is what you're taught about the
correct,
gut. You're taught
correct.
about medicine. You're taught about, fixes to what is going on inside the gut. You're not talk about, you're not taught as a medical doctor, how everything else is affected in every other parts of the body. And it's funny, actually. And this has got nothing to do with medicine. And I'm going to go on a tangent here. And my listeners know that I tend to go on these tangents. But when I first bought a house, specifically here in the USA, I had a small townhouse in Australia, but never really had to do any repairs. But when I bought a house here and we wanted to do some renovations, I was like, okay, well, I want to find a builder and I want them to come and give me a quote to do all this stuff. So this guy came along and he said, well, you'll need this contractor for that, 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 but I can only provide you a quote for this little thing here. And I'm like, well, why can't someone just do it all, and go off and do all the contracting? Goes, oh, well, no, you'll need specific window people. You'll have to go speak to the window people and you'll need, the garage door people and do that. So it's kind of a similar thing in a way, isn't it? It's sort of like, as any profession, you're trained on your specialty and that's it, and which is understandable. Otherwise, you can't be one to every people. So it totally makes sense. So I totally get that. But how do you think sort of like the medical community can sort of better integrate or acknowledge the different areas of the body, or even acknowledge sort of the natural and holistic approaches, especially when it comes to management of ADHD?
Well, it's interesting you say that because what drove me from my career as a dietitian to go back to school on a 14-year, it took me 14 years to go back to school and become a gastroenterologist and give up my previous life. The reason for that is because I was so frustrated as a dietitian that the physicians did not appreciate the role of nutrition in preventing disease nor in treating disease. And I thought, if I can become a physician, I can then write the diet orders. I can help thousands of patients with my expertise in nutrition to treat them, which was what was my driving force to become a physician. So now I do that in my end of GI, and I do internal medicine as well. However, what's lacking when I went to medical school, I graduated in 1991, there was only 25% of medical schools that taught nutrition. Brown,
Mm.
where I went, was one of them, and they only taught, there was a 4-day course out of 4 years, 4 days of nutrition. So what did you learn? So the lack of nutrition has to, impregnate the medical community so that in every subspecialty in their expertise, they realize the importance of medicine in that specialty. For example, in psychiatry, no, in all the years that he was getting treated with for his ADHD on 4 medications, the psychiatrist never mentioned nutrition. And I did ask him several times, well, I've heard about the fine milk gold diet and I've read about this study and that. Oh, no, that's hasn't been proven. And that doesn't really apply. And I would believe him and trust him. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist. So as a patient, you turn to that doctor as the expert. So somehow we have to get the word out that nutrition is diet and alternative methods are vital to the diagnosis and treatment of ADHD, which is what I found out after a very long road and the hard way with my son, who turned his life around after going through your program. And after, Derek went through your program and did so well, I actually reached out to the psychiatrist and shared the data, and I shared your program. And he was in awe of what Derek had done and has seen the difference in my son. And he is now a believer and wants to start to incorporate this into his program. But so I think one-on-one and just getting the word out is the way it's going.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I've got this podcast. That's why, that's why I jumped at the chance to get you on as a guest, because I think to have that, such a rounded knowledge of both nutrition, a child with ADHD, a gastroenterologist, I think that you are the perfect person to really help shout that out from the rooftops. Now, you mentioned your son. Why don't you share, since implementing these changes, what difference have you observed in his health, in his behavior, and his overall well-being?
Yeah, well, after he flunked out of college, his 4-year program, he came home and he decided to go to a junior college. So last spring, he went to a junior college. And this was before I was aware of your program, which I found out about in late spring last year. And he did very poorly there, too. He got about a 1.5 GPA, although he didn't tell me right away. Once again, he just said I did okay. So then I found out about your program in the spring, and over the summer, we embarked on getting the lab work and getting everything lined up. And he started in August, about the same time that he started in school, late August, early September, on your program. And within 2 weeks, I saw a drastic change in him. At first, it was that he seemed to be a little less irritable. He was a little less anxious. He was easier to get along with. I wasn't walking on eggshells around him. There was a little more peace in the house, and he was sharing more about school and about education. And he started saying, "Hey, Mom, I got an A on my math test, and Mom, look, I got an A on this by project." And I'm thinking, is he really doing well in school? Is that possible after flunking out? And it was like a light bulb went off in him, and he just kept. It was like a snowball. Week by week, month by month, he just kept getting better and better and started making friends and being more outgoing and just enjoying life. And to the point that at the end of the semester, he graduated on the dean's list, and he actually had all A's, and he had a 3.9 something average. And it was the happiest day of my life when he ever showed me his report card and his paper that said he made the dean's list. And he was crying and I was crying, because it was like, I never thought that this was possible. And the only variable was your program. And to make it even more proof that it was your program, I did a little mini experiment, and I stopped the 3 medications that he was on, as your program alluded to is possible. Because I saw him doing so well, I thought, I'm going to try weaning him off his meds. And unbeknownst to his psychiatrist, I did exactly that. I stopped his meds and I said, "Derek, how are you feeling?" "Okay, I feel fine, Mom." "Okay, well, I'm going to cut this one down. I'm going to stop this one." "Okay." And so I would say by November, he was off of his meds. And when he got his grades and he talked to his psychiatrist, he was so enthralled with how well he had done. And of course, he thought it was due to, medication. And when we ever told him, "Oh no, I stopped the meds, this is totally because of the only variable being the nutritional and alternative methods that I adopted because of Donna Kay's ADHD Thrive program. He couldn't believe it because he's been treating him for 15 years. And,
Yeah.
it's not possible without medication. I'm like, yes, it is. It's really possible. I proved it. He's been treated for 19 years with medication, failed out of school, had no hope of becoming anything in life. We find the program, we turn him around with alternative and diet therapies, we stop the meds, and now he's thriving. He's supposed to be thriving.
Amazing.
That's the lie you're told. But it's a Band-Aid, it's a facade. It doesn't get at the root of like your program did. You found the problem with the diet, with the lab testing and the detoxification of the toxic things he had, the deficiencies he had, and the other things that you incorporate into your program. So I am just so grateful that I stumbled onto your program, that you accepted my son and made an exception to take a 25.
Yes, I don't normally take a 25-year-old, but Donna definitely convinced me otherwise. And I'm so glad that I did, because he's thriving now. And I think listeners, like, what a story. I mean, if anyone is skeptical or hesitant about, natural approaches actually working, then this is a story that you've got to share with them. Donna, I'd love to hear what you would say to anyone that was skeptical, because I can tell you, we come across a lot of non-believers in our time. And I will say, I love this. I love the dads. I love the men. There are a lot of amazing ones out there, but it's usually the dad that's hesitant or skeptical. It's not usually the mum. I don't know why that is, but what would you like to tell them about, the natural approaches to ADHD management?
I would like to tell them that my biggest regret is that I didn't know sooner. I mean, my son for 19 years was on a path I thought was best, which was medication. I'm in the medical profession. How did I get bamboozled that this is the only way and the best way? Therapy and medication. And it's not, it wasn't, and it's not. And because we found out the hard way about, what happened to him, how many years of his life did he lose because I didn't know and try an alternative diet therapy? He could have already graduated, had a wonderful job, maybe been married and had kids, but instead of being where he's at now. So I would say that if I had known now what I know now, I would have done this years ago, but I didn't know. But you have no excuse. You know now. You know that and alternative therapies are out there. They're efficacious. They don't have any side effects. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And I can't tell you how much I regret not doing it. And I wish I knew, but if you know, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And that would
You
be
have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain. Donna, I think that is the perfect quote to end this episode on today. Your blend of that professional expertise, but also that maternal dedication, really has sort of shed the light, I think, for so many people out there, on the importance of exploring all avenues when it comes to ADHD management. For families navigating the complexities of ADHD, I think that today's discussion really just, shares that value of that open-mindedness. It's about finding what works best for each child, embracing the journey with that hope, that determination. If a 25-year-old boy out of college can do it, then, a mama of a child who's 4 years old or a 12-year-old, you can do it too. Whether you're considering sort of dietary changes, exploring the gut health, or really seeking to combine all of these strategies together, the key is to remain informed, involved, and just supported. Donna, I am immensely grateful for you today, for sharing your insights, your personal experience, and really offering this sort of hope, wealth of knowledge to really families and individuals facing these similar challenges. And I hope that, your story inspires other people out there to ask questions, ask questions of your doctor. Explore further, and discover the best path for their children so their children can thrive. Donna, I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for allowing me to share my story. If it changes life and one family, it's worth it.
100%. I totally agree with that. You know, it's like if you can touch one family, that one family will touch another family, and then it becomes infectious. Thank you once again for joining me today. Listeners, thank you for tuning into this week's amazing episode of The Soaring Child. I'm Donna Kay, your ADHD health practitioner. Keep on thriving. Thank you for listening to the Soaring Child podcast today. To learn more about how to help your child with ADHD soar using natural strategies, visit our website at ADHDthriveinstitute.com and follow us on social media at ADHD Thrive Institute.